Hey y'all, welcome back to the Laid Back Homestead. I'm Crystal, and today I am out feeding my garden. We are heading into our peak tomato season, so getting our nutrition right now is key to having a great harvest. Let me show you everything I use to keep my garden thriving. And the best part is, majority of what I use is free. We all know that using compost in the garden is probably the best thing you can give your plants nutrition-wise. But what do you do when you cannot have a traditional compost pile, whether that be due to lack of space, or maybe you even live in a place like I do where unfortunately I have bacterial wilt in my soil? Having a traditional compost pile just won't work. So by far the easiest and cheapest way to add nutrition to your soil is to compost in place and chop and drop. So composting in place is exactly like it sounds. When I'm cooking dinner or cleaning out the fridge, I'll grab a grocery bag and I will load it up with anything I need to get rid of. Now, of course, I typically stick with fruits and veggie scraps. I don't add any meat or dairy in here. And I do add toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, and into the garden it goes. A lot of people think that they can't compost in place because of a fear of burning their plants. As long as you're just leaving everything in either a certain area or simply on top, I've never had an issue with anything burning my plants. The only thing that's ever actually burned my plants was granular fertilizer. Composting in place is also great if you're someone like me that likes free volunteer plants. You're almost guaranteed to get volunteers if you compost in place in your garden beds. I like composting in place because it's basically recycling. You actually get to see the fruits of your labor over time. Chop and drop is exactly what it sounds like. When I need to come out and do any type of routine pruning, as long as the leaves are healthy and don't have any bacterial leaf spot or fungus issues, I simply just lay them down to decompose just like Mother Nature does in the forest. So what do you do if you're somebody who doesn't want volunteer plants all over their yard? Well, you have another option, and that is to get an indoor composter. An indoor composter is a great gadget for anyone that doesn't want to deal with composting in place, but still wants the benefit of some form of compost. It doesn't produce a true compost, so I still only apply it to the surface of my beds. But what it does is it takes your compost in place and breaks it down one step further. So essentially, you would have your bucket, you would put your food scraps in here. I also put in like Splenda packets and other things like that. And then you simply run it in the machine. The machine will actually take your compost or your food scraps. It will dehydrate them, essentially heating them up and sterilizing any seeds that are in there, grind it up, and then you're left with this nice, fluffy compost product, if you will. And it's easy enough to come outside with your bucket and sprinkle it all across your beds. And again, I have never had a problem with this burning my plants. And I use a lot of coffee grinds in here. That probably makes up the bulk of what I have in my indoor composter. Another way that I make compost for my yard is with a compost tumbler. Unlike the indoor composter, this will not sterilize any seeds, so you are still prone to get volunteers. But the reason why I like having a tumbler on my property is because it can handle the big bulky items that maybe would take up too much space in my beds to chop and drop, or are way too big to fit into my indoor composter, or just stems and stalks that are too woody to go into the indoor composter. Now, the finished product you get from the tumbler, as you can see, is not as smooth and broken down as from the indoor composter. And I typically will harvest it from the tumbler and then wait for seeds to sprout in it. And then I know it's safe for my garden. The great thing about composting in place is that my beds are filled with worms. Even though they're not open to the ground, the worms find a way in. But if you live in an area where you don't have a lot of worms or you don't see a lot of worms, and you still want the benefit of vermicompost in your garden bed, there is another alternative. If you want the benefits of vermicompost without having to compost in place in your beds, you can always get a worm tower. This is basically the same thing as composting in place. As you can see, I haven't fed in a while because I am hoping to harvest a lot of this soon. Here's my friends. To prepare for harvest, I start feeding the bottom trays so that they naturally migrate down there. And then this will be ready to go out in the yard. Now, both for the compost tumbler and the worm tower, you don't have to go out and buy those particular fancy gadgets. Both of those can easily be made with 5-gallon buckets for a cheaper alternative. I've been collecting these things throughout the years, so I just use what I have. The vermicompost from my worm tower, I will typically save and use in places around my yard that don't have a lot of worm activity. So for example, the pots that are on my patio, as well as my greenhouse. Now, one last bonus for my garden is fish tank water. I know not everyone has freshwater aquariums. I happen to have 3, and water changes are just a part of our monthly life. Adding the fish wastewater to the garden is a great way to get an extra quick nitrogen boost, as well as several other key micronutrients. The plants just love it, and the water has to be changed anyway. So if you happen to have freshwater aquariums, make sure you're not sleeping on that resource. Now, for the hydroponic garden, I do use hydroponic nutrients. I personally use the master blend system. I am open to suggestions though, if anyone knows of any other nutrient systems that work just as well, I'd be happy to experiment with. Comment it down below, of course. But so far, I really can't complain with the results. These are all the ways that I feed my yard all season long to get a wonderful harvest. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're curious to see just how much I can harvest out of this small backyard, I encourage you to subscribe. And until next time, stay blessed.